As many of you already probably know, the Atlanta Hawks just won the NBA Draft Lottery despite only having a 3% chance of winning it, and the reason I bring that up is because of how big and important that could be to the future of this Atlanta Hawks team. Before they won the lottery, they were in an okay situation. They were going to trade DeJounte Murray or Trae Young. They were going to get probably a few picks, maybe even a star level player, a few young guys, and try to build out their roster that way. But now what this does, what them winning the lottery does, opens up a world of possibilities and no telling how much they can do to greatly improve the ceiling of this roster and do it very, very quickly, even going into just next season. And I'm going to be getting to all the possibilities they could possibly do from a trade standpoint, from a draft standpoint, and just overall from the development of this entire roster as well, and why I think the Atlanta Hawks have a chance to really play and be an extremely good team going forward. And if they play their cards right going forward, I think they could legitimately be a contender if they can play their cards perfectly correct. But before I get into all the possibilities and trades and how they can improve this roster, let's kind of get familiar with the roster that they currently have. At the head of the snake, they have Trae Young. Now, Trae Young is one of the best point guards in the entire NBA, especially on the offensive side of the ball. He was top 15 last year in points per game, and he was second in assists per game last year as well, and he's just an all-around great offensive player and one of the best passers as well, and he would be an extremely valuable piece to any team that he was on, and he is a huge piece to what the Atlanta Hawks are trying to do. And although I don't think he's good enough to really be the number one option on a team, I think he is more than good enough to be in the top two options on a championship team, especially if you build the correct team around him. And then kind of even his sidekick, who probably won't be there much longer, they have DeJounte Murray. Now, DeJounte Murray is an extremely good point guard. He is a very good scorer. He has a winner's mentality. He wants to play the right way. The only problem is he's kind of a high volume guy. Him and Trae Young don't really match together. And although they are a very solid backcourt, I just think they don't fit perfectly, and they're probably going to have to trade one of them to really contend for championships in the future if they want to keep this window open. And I think DeJounte Murray, although he probably won't be there long, he could be an excellent trade piece going forward, so he is also still very valuable to the future of this roster. And then the third guy, in my opinion, is Jalen Johnson. Now, Jalen Johnson just had a huge third-year leap. He went from an okay role player to a potential all-star very quickly, and I've always been very high on Jalen Johnson, and it's very exciting to see him finally start to improve and get the opportunity he deserves. This year, he averaged 16 points per game, 1.2 steals per game, 3.6 assists per game, 8.7 rebounds per game on extremely solid efficiencies as well, and he legitimately could become an all-star level player, and he is only 22 years old, so he's still very young with an extremely high ceiling and a very high two-way potential as well. And then I just think overall he has a chance to legitimately be their third option if this team can become a contender very soon. And then the next guy I want to get into is going to be DeAndre Hunter. Now, although DeAndre Hunter is basically what he is at this point, he's 26 years old, he's just an extremely solid player. He can give you around 15 points per game. He's a very solid defender. He can just do a little bit everything you need. He's a solid shooter, and he's just an all-around extremely okay player to have on your team, and is extremely good for a fourth or maybe even fifth option on a high-level playoff team. And then the last player that I want to get into individually would be Onyeka Okongwu. Now, Onyeka, although I don't think maybe he won't have a huge role in this team going forward, I still think he could play a pretty pivotal role in their future from a trade perspective and from making moves perspective, or just adding versatility to this roster, which could be extremely, extremely important. But even him as a player, he's a very solid offensive guy who's improved every year on that aspect, as well as only being 23 years old and being a very solid defender as well. He's just a great, solid backup level center, maybe can even develop into a starting level center going forward. And now some honorable mentions that I would like to mention that I think could grow into bigger roles as they go forward. They have Kobe Bufkin, AJ Griffin, and they have Seth Lundy, all of which are extremely solid young pieces. They're fairly similar with how they play, and I think probably they're going to end up trading at least one or two of them, but I do think at least one of them will probably have a fairly big role to going forward on this roster, maybe even two of them, and I just think overall they're probably worth mentioning because I think that they're going to play at least somewhat pivotal roles going forward for the Atlanta Hawks as well. Now, you may have realized I kind of left out some guys like Clint Capella, even Bojan, that were been very, very probably beneficial to this team this year, and they're just fairly big pieces as well. But the reason I didn't mention them is because I think that they're probably going to be most likely in trade talks, or they're going to be able to do a lot of flexibility with this roster as a whole. Because with them only having the 3% chance of winning, they really were not expecting to be in this situation, but they now find themselves in this situation. And with the likely number one overall pick being Alex Sarr, that's going to open up a world of possibilities for this team. And one of those possibilities would be just to use the number one overall overall pick, draft Alex Sarr, which would then make a very young big three of Trae Young, Jalen Johnson, and Alex Sarr. And I think in the future, that could be a legitimate big three that could compete for championships, because I think Alex Sarr has superstar potential, Trae Young's already a superstar, and Jalen Johnson has all-star potential, and that is 100% a foundation you can build around going forward. But then not even on that, if they drafted Alex Sarr, then that makes Onyeka Okongwu or Clint Capella very, very more dispensable than they were before drafting him. And I think you could get a lot more for Clint Capella, and that is why I didn't mention him, because I think Clint Capella would probably be used in a trade to kind of get more guys around him, get more picks, yada, 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 no telling what they would do from there. But I do think Clint Capella, if they draft Alex Sarr, is going to also get traded, or maybe they trade Onyeka Okongwu. They will probably end up trading one of those two guys. And I just think overall, Alex Sarr would add tons of flexibility and open up more and more options. And then keep in mind that they're not even only going to be trading Clint Capella, they still have Dejounte Murray to trade, because he's been in tons of trade rumors, and there's no telling how much better and how much more they can improve this roster around that big three through tons of trades and moves if they play their cards correctly. And let's just say they go the route of drafting Alex Sarr and then trading Dejounte Murray later down the line. Some of those potential Dejounte Murray trades could get very, very interesting, and let's just look at a few scenarios. Let's say the Detroit Pistons, they want to get a star level guy, they want to get better quickly, so they want a guy like Dejounte Murray. The Detroit Pistons could make up a trade a little bit something like this. Now keep in mind, these are just very much like kind of structural skeleton like trades. There's obviously a lot of details that would have to be hammered out, and things like that, like picks and trades, all of that would have to be ironed out. I'm not getting into the nitty gritty details. This is just a very kind of bare bones structure of a trade that could possibly end up looking like this. And that would be that the Atlanta Hawks would be getting Azur Thompson and Jaden Ivey, while the Detroit Pistons would be getting Dejounte Murray. Now I know some Detroit Pistons fans could be a little iffy on wanting to get rid of Azur Thompson and Jaden Ivey and for only Dejounte Murray, but I think it would still fit them very well, because although I think Jaden Ivey is going to be a great player in the future, I think Jaden Ivey still has a few years to develop, and he is not what the Detroit Pistons exactly need right now, and I think they need to try to accelerate this rebuild, at least not being the worst team in the league, and I think Dejounte Murray would go a very long way in helping that. It would give Cade Cunningham an already established, very solid backcourt partner, and I just think it would really further along the development of the Detroit Pistons team. And on top of that, Dejounte Murray is not old, so it's not like he doesn't fit the timeline at all. And then from Atlanta's perspective, you're getting Jaden Ivey, a guy who can definitely score off your bench and give you lots of potential in offense, and also has a very high ceiling in himself. And then Azur Thompson, who is an extremely, extremely good defender and has all defensive potential written all over him. And if he can just get a jump shot, he could be one of the best 3-and-D guys in the entire NBA going forward. The next trade potential that would go is to be the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, the Los Angeles Lakers is very interesting because I don't think he would be an ideal fit for the Lakers, but it's also the Lakers, and they are very much big-name whores, so I wouldn't be surprised if they made this trade at all. And it would look roughly like the Atlanta Hawks would be getting Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves, and Maxwell Lewis, while the Los Angeles Lakers would be getting Dejounte Murray and Saddiq Bey. Now, I think this would benefit both teams. The Lakers would be getting that other star to put with Anthony Davis and LeBron, he's a legit star. He's better than D'Angelo Russell, so he'd be getting an upgrade over him, while the Atlanta Hawks would be getting extremely solid role players as well. Rui Hachimura has proven his value with the Lakers. He is a very solid role player. He has tons of playoff experience, and I think he would fit very well with this Atlanta Hawks team. Austin Reeves is one of the best role players in the NBA. He's extremely solid. He's kind of like one of those molds that you just love to have on your team, and he would fit very well. And then Maxwell Lewis is kind of a flyer. I'm high on him as a young guy. He's cheap. He makes this deal work, and I think he has a high ceiling, and if he does hit, he could be a huge contributor to your team in the future. And then even the Los Angeles Lakers getting Saddiq Bey would be giving them a scorer off their bench who is very, very solid and can also shoot the ball at a fairly good rate as well. And then the last scenario I'm going to really get into is going to be the New Orleans Pelicans, because the New Orleans Pelicans have been kind of like rumored around him, and with Brandon Ingram being in so many trade rumors as well recently, they're just kind of a natural fit and natural rumor mill going between them. And I think that one would look like the Atlanta Hawks would be getting Brandon Ingram and Dyson Daniels, while the New Orleans Pelicans would be getting Boban Bogdanovic and Dejounte Murray. Now, this would be an interesting fit because the Pelicans would be banking on the fact that Dejounte Murray could become a more of a true point guard type guy who can also just score the ball when he needs to, move CJ McCollum to the shooting guard position, have Zion run the 4, and then whoever they decide to, if they decide to keep Jonas or get a new guy, and then kind of just bang on the fact that Dejounte Murray would fit better with the team than Brandon Ingram and Zion currently do, because really the whole problem with the Pelicans is the fact that they think Brandon Ingram and Zion's play kind of clash and they don't really complement each other well, and that's why Brandon Ingram is in so many trade rumors, while the New Orleans Pelicans on the other hand, while the Atlanta Hawks on the other hand would be getting a guy in Brandon Ingram who is an absolute bucket and literally when he is on fire cannot be guarded, and then on top of that he fits with them because a guy like Trae Young and Brandon Ingram, although they are very solid scorers and love to have the ball in their hand, neither one of them are ball dominant, and it's not like Trae Young and Brandon Ingram score the same way, so it's not like they're taking shots from each other either. And then with a guy like Alex Sarr, I think he would fit very well alongside Brandon Ingram as well. And then plus you're getting Dyson Daniels, who although is very much offensively challenged, he is one of the better defenders in the NBA already, and he's very young with a potential that is fairly high and can maybe become an Andre Iguodala-esque player in the future, and I just think it would really benefit both sides. And now with all those scenarios really kind of summarized and winning over, now think about how high the ceiling of this team could be. They already pretty much are guaranteed to have a big three of Trae Young, Jalen Johnson, and Alex Sarr going forward. Then they're going to trade DeJounte Murray, maybe get another star or a lot of role players to strengthen this team as well. And then on top of that, when you draft Alex Sarr, you're going to be trading either Onyeka Okongwu or Clint Capella, who is going to get you a few role players as well. So this Atlanta Hawks team could look extremely, extremely different and much stronger than they already are, just from a few trades and a pick as well. And then another scenario, which I think is unlikely but very much possible, is the fact that they trade this number 1 overall pick as well. And if you trade the number 1 overall pick, you can still kind of get a much stronger roster as well, as you're going to get a star or a lot of players or a lot of solid pieces. If you trade the number 1 overall pick, then you still have DeJounte Murray to trade, and you're going to be getting a much stronger roster than you currently have, theoretically, if you were able to trade those two pieces. Or you could even combine DeJounte Murray and the number 1 overall pick, get a star or superstar level player to a team, and no telling how far you can go from there. So they have a lot of scenarios and a lot of ways to improve this roster, and if I had to bank on it, the Atlanta Hawks are going to be a much better and much stronger overall team going into next season, basically no matter how they do it, assuming they make the correct moves, and that's what I think makes them one of the most exciting teams going forward into next season. But unfortunately, guys, that's going to be it for this video. So comment below, do you agree with me? Do you think the Atlanta Hawks are one of the most exciting teams in the NBA? Who do you think is most exciting? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and what do you think they should do? I really want to hear all your thoughts and opinions below. If you like, point, hit the like button and subscribe button. I mean, that's so word to me, and I hope you have a blessed day, because I had a blessed day, so you need to have a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.